All right. Good evening. Good evening, my YouTube family. It is Tuesday night. It is Tuesday, January the 5th. You know what tonight is? It's election night in Georgia. All eyes on Georgia, y'all. All eyes on Georgia. When I got into this race to the United States Senate, I knew the magnitude of this race. I knew that all eyes would be on us here in this great state of Georgia, and they are. 2 seats are needed to balance out this Senate, 2 Democratic seats, and to have Warnock and Ossoff vying for those seats. The nation, the world, everybody's watching. So it's Tuesday. For the last 3 Tuesdays, I have been doing Teaching with Tamara and encouraging you guys to let's take a dive into history. I had Mr. Robert Thompson to join me, and we talked about the indoctrination of the Democratic Party and the Black church and the effects that have on us, those of us that are Black in this country, African American, those of us who are descendants of slavery, the effects of the indoctrination of the church. And I love God. Please don't get it twisted. The indoctrination of the church and the Democratic Party and how that weighs on us as a people. I had Mr. Reginald Muhammad to join me, and we talked about reparations and the need to consolidate the movement. We have a lot of leaders in the reparations movement, and I'm saddened by the leadership. Because instead of those that are leaders, and those of us who want to follow these leaders, instead of us rallying together, working together, collaborating, we are literally, they're fighting. And to watch our leaders, who the message and the mission should be all about reparations, to watch these people fight is disheartening, it's discouraging. And in the midst of this COVID season, where I feel like God has hit the reset button, we should be really taking this opportunity to get our houses in order as a people, as a nation. We should really be taking this opportunity to get ourselves in order. And it's so disheartening to me to watch our leadership go at each other and fight each other over turf. There's no such thing as turf right now, but that's what they're fighting over. Who's going to be the big dog? Who's going to be the one to get more clicks, and who's going to be the one to get more followers? And it's petty. So Mr. Reginald Muhammad joined me a couple weeks back to talk about consolidating the reparations movement. And I appreciate him for the work that he's doing to put together another summit to bring together the leadership. This past week, I had Mr. Reginald Hall to join me, and he talked about the stealing of the lands of Sapelo Island. Many of us are watching gentrification in our communities, and then we're watching gentrification on a whole island whose inhabitants are descendants. They came directly from Africa to the island. They can trace their lineage all the way back to the boat. They know where they come from out of Africa. They are very, to watch these people lose the lands of Sapelo Island is disheartening. It angers the hell out of me. And we're fighting, watching the movement fight. I'm going back there. So tonight, good evening, family. Good evening, family. Tonight, I wanted to, I'm going to do a couple things. I'm going to, of course, like I said, tonight is election night here in Georgia. And Joe Biden was here. And I'm going to share my screen. Share my screen with you guys. There it is. So Joe Biden holds a last-minute rally for Georgia Senate hopefuls. The power is literally in your hands. And Joe Biden made a statement that really, really disturbed me. And he made a statement. He said, in the article, it says, Biden singled out COVID-19 relief as major reason for Georgians to elect Warnock and Ossoff. And he says, if you send John and the Reverend to Washington, those $2,000 checks will go out the door, restoring hope and decency and honor for so many people. Biden said, referring to stimulus checks that have been championed by Democrats and Trump yet whittled down by Senate Republicans. Otherwise, Biden said, those checks will never get there. So I was disturbed by that comment because as a people, as a nation, that's a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. And to have our president dangle this carrot of $2,000 for some people that might get you out of the hole of the fact that you're behind on your rent. It might get you 1 month out of that hole. It's a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. So to dangle that in front of this crowd, and to have us as a people, I've seen a lot of videos where we're dancing and shucking and jiving. And this election needs to mean so much more. We're in the midst of COVID, where people have lost jobs, losing homes. People are not in a good place, can barely feed their families. I didn't want to come and bring this energy, but we got to be real truthful and real clear about where we are and what's happening. And Joe Biden with this $2,000 stimulus promise is not enough. It's not enough. So when I saw that, I wanted to bring that to you. So tonight is election night here in Georgia. And everybody's going to be watching. The polls close at 7, but I'm sure if we know Georgia, there are some lines that are probably still long in some of our polling locations because we tend to have issues. Voter suppression here is real. I've heard stories where the power went out. I believe over in Fulton during the presidential campaign, there was a pipe that burst and when they were counting the votes. So we tend to have some unexpected, quote unquote, issues around our voting. So I hope that in the next couple of days that we will actually have some clear results, some honest results. Yeah, this is Georgia, y'all. So it's a toss-up. It's yet to be seen what will happen here in the great state of Georgia. But moving on to keeping up with Congress. So I'm going to utilize these broadcasts moving forward to really dive into what is happening in Congress. I wanted to take tonight and I'll take Thursday night, and I'm going to do 30 minutes increments because I know a lot of this politics and policy, diving into these specifics of bills may not be the most interesting conversation to have, but this is where we learn to hold our elected officials accountable. No longer can we send people to Washington and just think that they're going to do it for us and they're going to get it done. And we're going to sit back and relax. No, no more. And that's what withhold the vote is all about. It's about holding those elected officials and those candidates that are vying for these seats, holding them accountable. No longer do you go to Washington and somebody don't keep an eye on you. So withhold the vote is going to be just that watchdog. Because if you're not doing what you need to do, I'll share my screen again. If you're not doing what you're supposed to do, if you don't have an agenda or a plan for those of us who are Black, African American, descendants of slavery, if you don't have an agenda specific, and if you're not working on our behalf, you're not going to stay. So the mission of withhold the vote, again, we hold elected officials and candidates accountable. We are harnessing our political power. And this is what, honestly, I feel like our leadership should be doing with all these different movements. How do we actually, this is the work. As a candidate to the United States Senate, I can tell you that there was people around the state of Georgia who don't have a clue about politics. Civics is not taught in school. They don't know who their elected officials are. So when they saw somebody like me come down and talk to them, it was like a star. And I'm like, I'm a servant. I'm here to serve you. I'm here to work for you. I'm not here to entertain you. I'm here to figure out what your needs are. And my job is to go back to Washington if I had won and do that job. So withhold the vote, the mission of the movement. Black people are sick and tired of being ignored, lied to, and disappointed by elected officials. Black people are tired of their votes being taken for granted, tired of being made to feel guilty for not trusting in the democratic process, and tired of being made to feel ashamed for not voting at all. Voting is a right, but in order to encourage Black people to exercise their right, they need sound reasoning. False promises and hopes of a bright future have no merit. No more will elected officials and candidates have the votes of Black people without accountability. Withhold the vote is holding elected officials and candidates accountable. Withhold the vote is a data-driven approach that tracks, monitors, and analyzes legislation. This data-driven approach holds elected officials accountable to not just what they say, but what they do. Elected officials must initiate and or support policy to advance the lives of Black people, and if they don't, we will withhold the vote. No more will we allow candidates and elected officials to fly under the radar and skate by. Withhold the vote will be holding them accountable and following their actions every step of the way. Withhold the vote, along with its advocates and allies, will be watching elected officials and candidates state to state and nationally. Withhold the vote will be monitoring legislation and initiating call to action. If you are interested in helping, there is a link. And there's a link to join, and I'll talk about that in just a few minutes. There's so much work that needs to be done. We don't have time to be fighting each other on social media. We have no time for that. We're about to start the 117th Congress. We're at a place where we understand that if we don't do something different, the data shows, and I repeat this like a broken record, that by 2053, we will have zero net wealth. We don't have time to fight anybody. We don't have time to fight each other on social media. We have work to do. It takes time and energy and resources to monitor these people, stay on top of what they're doing when these bills come down the pike, that we actually know what's going on. So let me show you some bills in Congress from the 116th Congress, which was 2019 and 2020. just to kind of give you some insight on why we need to pay attention to what's happening in Congress. HR 1525, Economic Development Act for Distressed Zones of 2019. This bill provides various tax credits related to economically distressed zones and establishes a procedure for state and local governments to apply for such designation. Specifically, the bill provides credits to taxpayers in an economically distressed zone based on the amount of 1, wages paid by an employer to employees, 2, depreciation of amortization allowances for business property, and 3, trade or business payments made for purchase of services or property. This bill also allows state and local governments to apply for a population census tract under their ambit to be designated as an economically distressed zone. These are bills that were in Congress. COVID overshadowed us in 2020, but these were bills. Let's see when this one was actually introduced. Let's see if my internet is moving a little slow. This bill was introduced in March of 2019. So there was legislation already out there that we could have been working on. But instead, we're fighting on social media. And we need to be mindful that these kind of bills, they can come back in this new Congress. So we need to be working, those of you that are watching, we need to be working and watching and not fighting on social media. HR 4408. This bill modifies the criminal civil rights statute that prohibits the deprivation of rights under the color of law. This is the Eric Garner Excessive Use of Force Prevention Act of 2019. Currently, the second prong of the prohibition bars the application of different punishments, pains, or penalties based on an individual's alien status, color, or race. This bill specifies that the application of any pressure to a person's throat or windpipe, which may prevent or hinder breathing or reduce intake of air, example, a chokehold, constitutes a punishment, pain, or penalty. These are the things, these are the bills that we need to be working on. This bill can come back. Senate Bill 5011, the Economic Empowerment for Underserved Communities Act. This one is actually introduced by Kelly Loeffler. She spent so much time bashing Raphael Warnock, she could have told us something that she was doing. A bill to codify the Minority Business Development Agency of the Department of Commerce and for other purposes. What were you doing, Kelly? None of us knew. This is the kind of stuff we need to pay attention to. Of course, HR 40. Those of you that are ADOS, that come from the movement like I do, come through the movement like I have, HR 40 is still out there. It has to be reintroduced in this brand new Congress to address the fundamental injustice, cruelty, brutality, and inhumanity of slavery in the United States and the American colonies between 1619 and 1865, and to establish a commission to study and consider a national apology and proposal for reparations for the institution of slavery, its subsequent de jure and de facto racial and economic discrimination against African Americans, and the impact of these forces on living African Americans, to make recommendations to the Congress on appropriate remedies and other purposes, and for other purposes. We got work to do. We don't have time to be fighting on social media. Withhold the vote is drilling down, looking at these bills, and we got to monitor. We got to get the word out. We got to reach out to these legislators. We have to have call to actions. We have work to do. HR 5349, Protect the SNAP Act. to prevent the changing of regulations governing the provision of waivers under the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program and for other purposes. What's going on with SNAP? We got to keep up because a lot of our people are getting SNAP. So we have work to do. We got to make sure that nobody is hungry in this nation. They're one of the richest countries in the world. Nobody should be hungry here. We have work to do. Withhold the vote. I'm committed, y'all. I ran for the United States Senate. I don't even know how much more committed I can be. I put everything on the line. My entire life for a whole year was committed to this. 106,000 votes later, I'm committed to this. HR 6820, Emergency Rental Assistance and Rental Market Stabilization Act of 2020, to provide emergency rental assistance under the Emergency Solution Grants Program of the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development in response to the public health emergency resulting from the coronavirus and for other purposes. There's a lot of people that need rental assistance. Joe Biden dangling, like I said, that check for $2,000, that might get you out of the hole for 1 month. But if you haven't been able to pay your rent for the last 6 months, that damn sure ain't gonna help you. Joe could have said, let's put a moratorium on these, we're gonna stop these rents and we're gonna stop these evictions. He could do more. $2,000, like I said, is a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. And we shucking and jiving. HR 8196, Protect Black Women and Girls Act of 2020. This bill establishes an interagency task force to examine the conditions and experiences of Black women and girls to identify and assess the efficacy of policies and programs of federal, state, and local government designated to improve outcomes for such individuals and to make recommendations to improve such policies and programs. This can come back, y'all. The task force shall, 1, cover issues involving Black women and girls in education, economic development, healthcare, justice and civil rights, and housing, and 2, submit recommendations at specified intervals to Congress, the President, and each state or local government on policies, practices, programs, and incentives that may be adopted to improve outcomes. U.S. Commission on Civil Rights shall conduct a comprehensive study and collect data with respect to the effects on Black women and girls of a wide range of specified economic, health, criminal justice, and social service factors. We got to have we need a seat at the table. We should be doing this work. We should be monitoring this. We should be holding them accountable. We should be a part of this. This is HR 8941, to secure the federal voting rights of persons when released from incarceration. Let's see what this says. Yeah, to secure the federal voting rights of persons when released from incarceration. Yes. We keep going state to state to state to try to fix this problem that exists nationally. Why not create federal policy that will restore these voting rights? So we have work to do. We have work to do. I read to you the mission of Withhold the Vote. On this website, we have 2 pages where we will be tracking elected officials and candidates on a federal level. Right now, we're looking at Georgia, and session hasn't started. But this map is where we can track anybody across this country and do the work that needs to be done that affects us all. We can track specific policy in addition to those legislators, and we're paying attention to them specifically and holding them accountable. Here, look at the Black map. This is where we can look at specific policy, okay? There's a Patreon account, everybody. $5 a month to support this. This data is not free and this data is not cheap. $5 a month to support this. $10 a month gets you an email every week with your call to actions so that we can collectively start moving the needle. So that when we go, when we say something to these elected officials, we've been doing the work. When we call them out, we've been doing the work. We got the receipts. So all of this beefing and these turf wars and all the mess that's happening on social media with our leaders and our leadership, if that's what y'all want, you don't want me. Because I don't want to be a part of the mess. I want to do the work. And I want to surround myself moving forward. Now that I'm beyond this election, today is the end of, something's going to happen tonight, tomorrow, by Thursday, but hopefully no later than Friday, we will have some true results. And when we have some results, we'll have a Congress in place. We've already delivered the presidency. Okay, we'll have a Congress in place, whatever that may look like. No matter whatever it looks like, we have work to do. We have work to do. We have this is movement building. This is the work. So I'm asking you and I'm encouraging you to go to the website. You can send me an email, ask me anything, but we have work to do. I see the comments. I'm going to take a couple minutes before I'm only going to be on here from 7 to 7:30 moving forward. Because like I say, these bills, sometimes, you know, it's not the most interesting. And I know that. So I want to give you the information. You'll, like I say, when you become a Patreon, you'll get the emails every week and you'll have the information. You'll know what kind of post to put out. You don't have to, you know, just post anything. We'll send you call to actions every week. This is what's going on. This is the legislator. So we can have these dialogues around policy in real time. So I'm gonna go through some of the comments, everybody. He says $2,000 won't change ADO wealth position. Absolutely not. That does not close. You get a check, you get a check, you get a check. It sounds like Oprah. You get a check, you get a check. That doesn't close the racial wealth gap. If you get a check and you get a check, and $2,000, like I say, may be enough to get you out of the hole for 1 month, but you're still in a hole. ADOS Nashville is checking in. Hey, family. He says, I am trying to get ADOS to commit to a weekly action item, something like a group Twitter blast to be sent out to elected officials. Robert, I've already done it. What you're trying to do has been done. Send me an email. You want to have a conversation with me? I'll be more than happy to have a conversation with you as well. Send me an email. You're trying to get people to do something that they may not have the bandwidth to do or the know-how. I have been tracking and monitoring legislation that affects the beauty and barber industry since I have hard numbers from 2015. I started my efforts with the industry in 2011, but every year from 2015 until now, I'm working on my end of the year report now for the beauty and barber industry. I've tracked hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pieces of legislation every year that affects my industry and have been a resource to my industry. So I have the data, I have the know-how. Send me an email, Robert, if you want to talk. He says Joe Biden is trying to figure out how to appeal to conservatives. And I hope he doesn't do this the whole time he is in office. That would be terrible. Tuning in from Vermont. Hi, Cheryl. Stepping out to share on Facebook. ADOS reparations now. Thank you. Thank you, Vermont. Thank you, Cheryl. Don't they have 2 seats available in Louisiana now too? The Republican who just died from the virus and Cedric Richmond seat. Looks like, there's going to be 2 more seats up for grabs. Ask me, what exactly are you referring to? Are you talking about the same thing Yvette addressed last night? I don't know what she addressed last night. I'm talking about withhold the vote tonight. So again, I'm going to use Tuesdays and Thursdays. Pre-files in Congress actually start today, January the 5th. So next week, I will come back with current legislation and we'll talk about where we are and what's going on and just kind of bring you up to speed. But on this coming Thursday, I'm going to continue to give you more, show you more bills. We'll have some election results. So I'm sure I'll have some, hopefully we'll have some insight on how this election actually turns out tonight. So I'll come back to you on Thursday from 7 to 7:30 and we'll talk further. So again, I am Tamara Johnson Shealy. Go to the website withholdthevote.org. Please become a Patreon. There's work to do and I'm committed to doing it. Like Robert said, he's been asking others to do it. Like I say, they may not have the bandwidth or the know-how. I have both. So withholdthevote.org is a tool that when legislators see withhold the vote, it totally gets their attention. And the fact that we know what they're doing, they're gonna have to fly right. So again, I am Tamara Johnson Shealy, and I will see you guys on this Thursday at 7 p.m. We'll talk about this election. Hopefully we'll have some results. And we'll talk more about the bills in the 116th Congress. And the next week, we'll move into current legislation. He says, one more question. Should I go to your official page to get your email? No, go to right here. Go to withhold the vote, contact. I get those. So I will contact you back, Robert. Thank you, Don. See y'all Thursday. Have a good night, everybody.